So many of us have been taught that keeping the peace means staying quiet, avoiding conflict, or letting our title define who we are. But what if those very habits are the reason we feel stuck, unseen, or undervalued? My guest today is the amazing Quincy, and she knows the struggle all too well. And she's on a mission to change that. Through her signature Spark framework, Quincy helps leaders and professionals break free from conflict avoidance, speak up with courage, and live beyond the labels of their roles. Today, she's going to show us how tackling hard conversations can actually create the success, recognition, and authentic relationships we've been waiting for. I am so excited to have you on today. We met via LinkedIn. Well, I think I saw you on another Zoom, but then we kind of connected via LinkedIn. All your posts, I was just like, yes. And I was like, I have to have her
That's
on.
what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for all the time is the head nods, right? Those silent agreements.
Yep, exactly. So tell me about your Spark framework. What is that? Where did it come
Absolutely.
from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, a lot of my story starts with, I think I grew up in Southern California, and I tell people I grew up before the internet, learned the internet, and now this other side of it, right? So I know the various sides of life. And for me, always watching the way that people would interact and understanding some of those things where what people would talk about, but also the conversations they would shy away from, right, was always a curiosity for me because at a very young age, I always sort of recognized there's an elephant here that we are all sort of tiptoeing around, and I wonder why. So for me, it became very important to understand how can we start facing some of these tough conversations, but do it in a way to where we each felt safe, we can feel heard, but also have a win-win solution when available. So it came from preparation, right? How do you start the conversation and move through it? So the Spark framework is really underpinned by structured conversations and creating win-win solutions.
I love that. Wow. And especially as women, I know, especially Southern women, we've been taught to be quiet,
Oh yeah.
be a good little girl, agree, do what you're told, keep your mouth shut, that sort of thing. And most of us aren't prepared for any kind of negotiation or, yeah. My parents will tell you I loved to debate when I was younger, so maybe I'm a little bit different, but
Right,
um,
right, right.
I love that you're tackling this issue. I know that a lot of we talk about the pay gap disparaging, the pay gap,
Hmm.
and part of that is on us because we're
We don't
not
ask.
negotiating, we're not having those conversations and really demanding the change. So I feel like yes, there's a systemic issue there, but we have some power
We
that
have
we're
to start
not.
speaking up,
Yeah.
right? We have to start owning that power. When I first started, I think really sort of making my strides in corporate America, I've always had really great women around to support me and mentor me. And I always say when you can have that type of relationship, especially one of built of trust, one of camaraderie, but also having women that are going to push you forward while also, pulling you is amazing. And I had a woman leader tell me, men oftentimes apply for a role if they have 50% of the skills, right? They don't care. Sometimes women, we wait till we're like 90, 80%, hitting all of those bullet points on whether it's, the job qualifications. We second guess ourselves so much. And because we don't ask, we don't get. I tell a story a lot of times. I've had 3 employees that used to report to me, all doing a similar type role. The male that I hired, he came in and also asked for an extra 7% increase. He got it because I had it in the budget and he asked. The 2 other women that were doing the same role did not ask, so they did not receive. And for me, that was just one of those moments where I'm like, I want you to ask, but I also had to understand that a lot of women have not been given that permission sometimes that we're waiting for to really own and step into the driver's seat of either, our personal or our professional goals. We're usually waiting for someone to give us this permission that really doesn't exist. The permission is sitting within you and really taking your own power back, which sometimes sounds cliche, but we just don't often realize how frequently we're letting someone else be in charge of those decisions for ourselves.
Yes, that is a fantastic point because, it goes, right in line with the PR side of things. I always tell people, if you're not telling your story, you're giving permission for other people to tell your story the way
And
they
who
want to
knows what
tell it.
that story would be, right?
Exactly. So I love that you're saying that, there are many times that we don't even realize that we are giving someone else power over us. Um, you talk about two women kind of not letting their titles really be the definition. Where did that become important to you?
Oh yeah, that became important to me because the title that I was working for, those sort of promotional titles within your professional life start to supersede all of the other titles that maybe were important to you in your younger years, right? So you get further away for those things that truly bring you joy and fulfillment, and all you're chasing is that next title, right? That's going to impress people externally, but may not be feeding you internally. So for me, it was about, oh, well, I am the X person of this group and I lead this people and we do this thing. But none of those things spoke to Quincy as a person and what really brought me joy and fulfillment. And as I started to find myself being able to quote, the mission statement and the core values of the other entities that I supported, I had to really sit back and think about, okay, what's important to me? What does success look like for me at this point in life? Because for a lot of us, if you've done it the traditional way, you did your high school, you go to college, you get the good job, maybe you get married, right? But sometimes there's, 10 years, 15 years in between there, you may not have revisited what does success mean to you now versus what it may have meant to you as a young 22-year-old, right? And for me, in sort of my last foray in the corporate world, I walked in, a professional in my early 30s. Well, when I exited out, I was a woman in my mid 40s, and I had very different goals and things that were important to me. And sometimes those no longer align, right? And then you have to really step back and externally understand that for a lot of the people who've been watching that success, right? You've got all of the things, you're living this American dream, so to say, whatever that even means anymore. You're living this dream, and now you have to say, you know what? I've done all this work. I don't know if this is what I want anymore. And then how do you communicate that to the people closest to you without them thinking you're losing your mind,
You're losing your
right?
mind. You're going crazy. Uh-oh, midlife crisis.
Right, exactly. It's midlife crisis. She's lost her mind, right? She's kind of like becoming this rebel. And it's not about that, but it's also understanding that, as I sit here now, 45 years old, am I going to take my next 20 years doing the same thing? Or am I going to create a different chapter and look for new experiences? And that's what became important to me, not so much the titles. And I even had to challenge myself, Chrissy, is when I would meet people and no longer asking, like, well, who do you work for? What do you do? I started asking people, what are your hobbies? What brings you joy? And people would be stuck, you know what I mean? Because it just was so unexpected. But that's what allowed me to connect to who they were as a person and not what they did or who they served.
Yeah, I've had that very question asked to me recently, and I love that you're on particularly my podcast, because you're speaking to exactly one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, because I wanted women to be finally seen for all of the things we are, not just our titles, like you mentioned. They're not just a mom, not just a daughter, all the things we are. And you said that you like to ask people about their hobbies, and as an entrepreneur, I feel like sometimes I work 24/7,
Oh, sure.
and
We quit the 9 to 5 to work 24/7, right?
right, right. And when the person asked me, "What are your hobbies?" I said, "I read, I guess." But then
Right.
I had to think, what do I read? Mostly educational, mostly
Hmm.
development. It's like, well, I guess it's not really a hobby. I was like, oh, I guess I need to work on that.
But even in that, Chrissy, if those things you find truly fulfilling, it's different, right? And I've learned that as I've leaned in more into those things that bring me joy and having people who support those common interests, and we have sort of like mind, like spirit, it doesn't, it's taxing because you're working, but there's so much pride and so much accomplishment I get to feel in what I'm doing that I didn't feel before. Sure, I was, crossing off check marks before, but now when I get to sit with the women who I talk with and help them uncover and start unmasking all of these layers of mask, right, that we wear sometimes, these layers of protection, and let's get really close and understanding each other. That's the type of work and that's the type of space that I can stay in all day because it's not draining and taxing in the same way that I'm constantly serving to other. I'm also receiving as much as I'm giving. And I don't think I was getting that before.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel like that, especially in the corporate environment. There's 20 different people you have to make or talk to ask, get a decision done, all these
Sure.
things. And I recently saw a post that was asking people, would you rather have a job that you hate that pays $250,000 or a job that lights you up that pays only $150,000? And so many people were like 150, 150. And I was trying to think, I thought, yeah, I'd probably go with 150 too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about it is, there's also a certain level of privilege to even be able to have that type of consideration.
Mm.
Right. And be able to say, you know what, I can take that pay cut because I value my peace of mind. And I do think, at times that comes with age and maturity. Before I had, so much stamina to do all of the chasing. And I try to stay in a space of attracting and being more honest with what I need and what works and what doesn't. I try to stay away from.
I love that. Yeah, you're right. There is a privilege in being able to make those choices. And that's something that weighs heavy on me a lot
Oh,
as
what?
as a former single mom, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have money. I
Oh,
just,
sure.
and I did what I could. And, now I see other women and I wish that I would have known in my 20s how much more power over my situation I could have had than I realized, which is so one reason, one of my belief statements is I believe women should embrace their worth and confidently pursue the success they desire. And again, so it's another reason why I immediately clicked with what you were saying. um, and yeah, I wish that I could go out there and tell so many women, you don't have to keep yourself limited in these choices. You can change your situation. It might not happen immediately, but you can change it. And so I love that you're helping women do that as well. And if I remember correctly, we met, you were talking about speaking, correctly?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's
Yes.
what I was thinking, because I know a lot of women, like what you were talking about earlier, a man will come in and say, yes, my fee is $10,000. And a woman will be like, well, what about
Tiptoeing,
1,500?
dodging, right? Because we're number one. I think it's some for most of us. We want to feel acceptance, right? We want to be a part of the group, and you don't want to alienate anyone. But we're also always second guessing, do we have the worth? Am I worthy of that amount? Am I truly that different? Is my thought so uniquely positioned that I could command that type of payment? And I think once you really own and you're true with yourself, absolutely. There's so much investment and so much work that we do as entrepreneurs, as women. I even think, I always tell people when I can, my mother is my hero. She was a single mother and we had, different relationships over the years to where I've had great male influences in my life. My father passed away many, many years ago. And so for me, I always seen her deprioritize her needs to prioritize, the needs of my brother and my sister. And while I'm thankful for that, I had the privilege of post quarantine, having her come and stay with me and my wife for a while. And I got to know my mother as a woman, right? And
Um,
understand some of those choices. And that also propelled my business and also saying, you know what? She's not the only one. And what if we could start catching women earlier in their life and arm them with the tool to be able to have that, what I call is it requires courage, right? Because you can fake confidence. You can fake,
yes.
you right? You hear that the statement, right? Fake it till you make it. And I think we're coming out of some of that because there's a lot of people who have faked it. You fake it, you made it, and then you get the now what? Right?
Yeah.
Or you're suffering from the imposter syndrome because please no one find out that I don't know half of what you think I know, right? And so for me, it was about what if there was a way where if we were prepared for some of these tough conversations and do it in a way to where while you are focused on holding the people around yourself accountable, the first person you have to be willing to hold accountable is yourself,
Mm,
right? And for me, when I talk about women, when we start dodging those conversations and that lacking that accountability to others, it's because oftentimes we've broke so many promises to ourselves, right?
Yes.
And it's sometimes it's so easy, right? I'm gonna start that workout plan on Monday. I'm gonna do this on Monday. Okay, at the top of the year, I'm gonna do this. All right, at the next quarter, I'm gonna do this. And it could be for your personal life or your business. But when you when you break those promises, it also puts this mindset in you that other people aren't going to keep their word. So then there's this lack of trust all around. And for me, I'm about how can we start rebuilding those trusting relationships, because we've come through this culture of ghosting people. You can mute people. You can easily dispose of people these days. And as you know, Chrissy, it's hard when you're an entrepreneur, right? But even whatever sort of industry you may be in, relationships matter, and you
Yeah.
need to be able to build and leverage those. And I am a firm believer that some of my greatest relationships, we have had to go through or navigate conflict at some point, right? We're not always going to disagree. So how can we do it in a way that's structured, that's focused, that's prepared,
Yeah.
but also at the end of the day, we both are understanding, are we moving forward together or are we not? And then we both get to go from there.
I
I got
love that.
tired of, just feeling like I'm avoiding, right? I remember I used to take pride in, like, people know, oh, you're such a flake. Well, I was a flake because I was so focused on people pleasing. I didn't
Mhm.
want to disappoint someone by saying, no, I don't want to do this thing or I don't want to attend. I could take the bad reputation as a flake, but now that I've sort of worked through that, as I focus on what's important to me, and set those boundaries, I don't have to flake anymore, because the things that I don't want to participate in, they're really not even in my ecosystem anymore, right?
Yeah.
I have more time for the things that I want to do and I can fully show up and commit.
I love that. You're so right. I mean, I know with myself, I was talking to one of my coaches recently, and I have been a formal people pleaser, and boundaries. What are those?
Right.
And
That's like
so
work-life balance, right? Boundaries and work-life balance. What does that really mean?
exactly. Well, and
Unicorns.
once I went through and actually discovered what my actual core values are, like, yes, we have the company core values, but what are my personal core values? And why are they my personal core values? Once I established that, integrity is one of them, which I know a lot of people say integrity. But once I dove into why integrity is so big to me, it's because of all the deceit I had experienced in the past. And so I never want anyone to feel like I felt on the receiving end of that. But here's the kicker: I wasn't in integrity with myself. And so I was letting my integrity core value get shadow attacked, and boundaries were being broken. And I was letting people use my integrity as a kind of pushing boundaries on the people pleasing side of things. And it was when once I realized that, I was like, oh, so boundaries are actually good for everyone involved,
Oh
because
gosh.
once I hold a boundary, I'm in integrity with myself. I'm going to perform better. I'm going to just exist better. So it's going to end up in a better result for everyone.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
I listen, I think once you finally figure out this like mysterious boundary situation, you kind of want to smack yourself for not figuring it out sooner, right? Because I always say you will have to figure out your boundaries, right? And that to me is an iterative process, because sometimes we go very, very hard the other way because we haven't had any. So you have to figure out what is that right balance. But also, you have to communicate those boundaries.
mm,
It's unfair to penalize someone for violating a boundary that was really never shared or discussed with them. And then also, it's your job to protect that boundary line, but you also have to understand other people are going to push your boundary to make sure, are you serious about it? Or is it something that you're just saying? So I think the more you get in the practice and in the habit of saying, nope, this doesn't work for me, or even, no, this doesn't work. How about this? Right? Because it's just, you don't have to be completely dismissive. Where I can try to find win-win solutions, I absolutely do. But I've also become very comfortable with no being a full statement sentence. And if it's a no, it doesn't work for me, it's a no.
that's interesting. I know, we see that those text things written, text memes that just say no is a complete sentence. So like,
Hmm.
okay, everybody says, yes, I love it, love it. But how many of us are actually doing that? So
Not
what
many.
advice do you have for women who they love the idea, they want to get there, but
Yeah.
they're just stuck?
I think it's really first starting with one area in your life, right? And thinking about when you want to enforce the boundary, why? What are you wanting to set yourself up for? And what are you wanting to stop doing, right? Because I think when you stop one thing, you have to sort of fill it with something else, or that behavior will sort of wiggle its way back into your life. So for me, it was when I knew that when I turned 45, I wanted to, well, I feel like I had it was almost divine intervention. You got to start, physically intentional movement, right? What did that look like for me? So I went a little hard and I started doing the 75 hard, right? Because I saw it all over social media and everyone said to do it. But I will tell you, it wasn't for me. It wasn't so much about, the weight loss part. It was the discipline that really changed for me. And once I started building that daily routine of first, I take care of me, mind, body, and spirit. And then everything else after that, I started to become such a better person to everyone else that I interacted with that I couldn't go back the other way, right? When I don't take care of me first, and I start with other people. And it's not, sometimes you have a give and take depending on what's going on. But when I keep me focused first, I'm so much better for everyone else. And again, that's some of that people pleasing. So I always say, start with one thing, find something that maybe brings you joy. Again, going back to hobbies, whether that could be, working out or ceramics or knitting, whatever that thing may be for you, that you're actively saying, if you can be doing something with your hands, doing something with yourself, carving out that space and owning that time, saying, nope, this is the time where I do that just for me, then that gives you that confidence, right? Because now that's a confidence that is growing to say, okay, I've taken care of that. I can start adding other little things on. And before you know it, you've made such small incremental shifts, but then that has become a major change in your life. And you can't even understand 90 days ago, like what you may have been doing.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
so right. The discipline side of things was one of the reasons why I did physique competitions. This was now like 10 years ago or something. While I had always been athletic and in shape, I really wanted to see, can I do that? And can I be gutsy enough to get up on stage? Because I don't like being center of attention.
Oh,
But
me neither.
can I be bold enough to get out there and do this competition? And, I did it. I did it 3 times, won one of them. I look back and I'm like,
Congrats.
heck yeah, you did it. Of course. Yeah. And the confidence that I got from knowing I could do that, even now, I'm so much more confident with my body, even though it doesn't look like it did then. I'm much more confident than I might have been, or than that I might have been. So now I get
Absolutely.
what you're saying. Just start with one area
One
and
area.
start with, getting the courage to do that. I've heard some women will do like, especially if they can control their schedule, like I don't take meetings before 9 a.m. or I don't take meetings on Mondays or whatever, something small like that could be a nice way for people to start with their boundaries.
Absolutely. Because I think then when you create that boundary and you have that, deeper reason of why, right? What that boundary is going to enable you to do, right? Is for me a position of power, because you're not creating the boundary from being in a negative space. You're trying to focus on something that is going to help you be more of who you are, right? And that is a great space to be in, to say, I don't take meetings on Monday because it helps me prepare for my week. I'm better the rest of the week. Whatever that may be, is such a powerful space to be in. And I think there's honor in that. I don't see that as being selfish anymore. I think maybe when I was younger, I did, right? Like who do I think I am where I don't have to take a meeting on Monday, right? But what I know now is, why do I have to take the meeting on Monday? There are many other days that I'm available, and if we're supposed to have the right type of conversations, we'll figure it out, And the thing about it is you can't even schedule the meeting with me on Monday because my calendar is my boundary. So that's it, right? I love technology to help support my boundaries when available.
Yes, love that. And you're so right. I even have it for certain things because I know that my brain space is not
Yep.
going to be good if I have to have this strategy session while I'm also having client meetings. And so my
You want to
separate
talk to me
phone.
Wednesday at 5 o'clock p.m.? I'm done. I'm
Exactly.
exhausted. I'm exhausted. You're not going to get the best part of me, right? And so I try to make sure if there are, the times of days where I need to sort of be in that space of ideation and brainstorming, you got to get me fresh top of the morning, right? You don't want to to have me think of new ideas 5 and 6 o'clock at night. That's probably not going to be good for anyone.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that actually came up recently. And I was like, no, actually, Monday's not available. And, I
How did it
gave
feel to
them
push back like that?
I was fine with it now.
Hmm.
In the past, it would have been really hard and I probably would have broken out in hives. But but now I was like, no, not available Monday because I know I'm not the best on Mondays when it comes to those sorts of things. We have internal meetings on Mondays and I prepare for the week. I look at what the clients need for the week. I make sure, that I am ready to go. And it
And I
just makes
think that's a part of it, Chrissy, what you just said, right? You're preparing. You already know you've done that work within yourself of figuring out where do you show up your best and what's probably not the best time for you. And I think we need to take more time to figure those things out rather than just being open to, any and everything. And sometimes that's not going to get you where you want to go long term. You're going to get to burn out doing that.
one of the things that helped me with that was I wrote out what my ideal week would look like. If everything went perfect, here's what my ideal week would look like. And then it also, I looked at, okay, what is my energy level throughout the day? Typically right after I eat, it could be really good. It could be bad, depending on what my
Oh,
MCAS is
absolutely.
doing. And, like in hindsight, I probably should have not eaten before we hopped on this call, just in case it would have done something to me. So it's like, all right, well, nope, maybe next time I'll just not eat yet. But thankfully I'm good. But yeah, it's just we've got to get to know ourselves. And you said something earlier too about knowing when no is a full sentence. And
Yes.
for me, my nervous system has been able to help me with determining whether it's a yes or a no. And we had a potential client come to us and just something inside, like my nervous system felt just like, ugh, I don't know. And in the past, I probably would have brushed that off and gone, oh, but it's a client. It's a potential client. I should take them. And I even remember I told the team this. I was like, I'm not feeling this one, guys. So we're going to pass.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it just, it works so much better. But I think it's only because I'm older now that I'm able to listen to my body. And because of my mast cell activation syndrome, it does make me pay attention to my nervous system more. And I wish that somebody would have taught me how to do that a long time ago.
I have suffered from asthma my entire life, right? And it can be something that's also triggered by
Yeah.
emotional responses, right? And so maybe not while exactly the same, but it's something that I have to understand that there's something that's triggering an internal response, that there is something either not safe, it just doesn't connect with me internally, right? And this needs to be a no. And being able to say that no in a way to where, you can still do it with grace. There's nothing that has to be, disrespectful or demeaning about it. But if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. And that's okay. That's okay. And I think sometimes we feel as though we have to be all things to all people,
Mhm.
and you just can't. Not all people are your people. That's something I heard last week when I was in Dallas at a conference. And for me, it stuck with me because when I tried to focus my mission, when I first started my business, and, I thought I wanted to be, this sort of like personal development coach and, all this wooing and all of that. And some of that is me, but also for me, I'm about strategic solutions to practical everyday things. And that's really where Spark was also born out of, right? Because for me, the framework is very simple. It's starting with those facts, right? Understanding your perspective and sharing the impact of what's happening in the situation,
Mm.
leaving space for the other person and asking for their input, because sometimes we don't know if circumstances for that other person may have changed. Being able to say back to them and reflect and reframe what you're hearing, and then looking for a way to kindle collaboration. But before you can do those things, you need to know what is a possible solution for you and what are solutions that are going to work for you. And oftentimes I find that when we're in that space of just saying yes, 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 we haven't sat back to say, wait, what is really important to me? Either, what's moving me forward or my business? How is this going to allow for me to step into more greatness? Or is this just, that distraction or that noise? And it's making me feel busy. So I feel like I'm being productive, but I'm not making any progress. Sometimes we confuse busyness for movement, and it's not
Hmm.
the same.
Absolutely, 100%. I know I've fallen into that trap before, and
Oh, all of
so
us.
that's one of the things I do is in the morning, the top three things that I absolutely have to get done that day, and if I get those three done, cool.
Yep.
If I didn't, then all right, what did I let slip in that disallowed me from getting that thing that was really important? And that's been super helpful. Again, I wish I would have known that when I was younger.
All the things we wish. And I think that's also one of the greatest things about podcasts like yours. Like when I heard the name of your podcast, I was like, oh, automatically, yes, finally seen.
Aw.
Because in my life as well, I feel like, I'm in a space where I'm finally being seen for more than the way I could just serve other people. I'm being seen for who I am, truly, the value that I bring, but it's not in a task driven way. It's in a way to where I'm going to invite you into a conversation that's a little bit deeper than what you may have expected.
Love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
exactly. That this because I always felt like, when the girls were young or when our kids were younger, it's like, oh, I was mom. And, it's once they all left the nest that I kind of was like, huh, all
Now
right.
what?
Okay. Yeah. Like, all
What do I do
right.
with all this time?
Yeah. And, especially one of our twins, she is a country artist and, would often have gigs on Friday and Saturday nights that we would go to. And now that she lives in Nashville, it's like, well, wait, so what do we do for fun?
Hmm. Right. Right. And getting to know yourself in the different seasons of your life. Right. And I think for me, the season I'm in now is so different than what the season looked like maybe 10 years ago. And
Mm,
I always laugh and say, I'm thankful to every person along my journey. And for many of those people, I sincerely apologize because I wasn't always the best version of myself. And I hope that as I continue to grow and evolve, that if we're ever in a space to reintroduce ourselves to one another, I hope I can introduce you to a new and improved version of me and that they're
mm.
willing to accept that.
I love that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I can think back at the times like my husband had cancer when we were in our 30s, and I remember I didn't have much to give. Like,
Yeah.
so I know that I let friendships go and things like that because I didn't have any more
Didn't
in the
have it.
tank.
Yep. It's empty.
And yeah, and
Sometimes that
thankfully,
tank is negative, right? Like I'm borrowing from 2 weeks, right? And I,
exactly.
I just don't have the mental capacity, the physical capacity. I would not show up and I wouldn't be my best self. So it became easier to not show up,
Yeah.
right? And then you become more and more distant and those relationships become more and more strained. And at a certain point, it's easier to that earlier conversation where we just don't rekindle the relationship and we have all these little fires that we're leaving behind, and there's a level of emptiness and sadness and loneliness. And I think we're seeing some of that when you hear about some of the things with social media and the loneliness epidemic and people
Hmm.
not feeling connected. And I think it's because we haven't learned how to really manage the conflict or tough conversations in a way to where you can still be respectful. We don't have to agree on everything, but I can l- listen and expand my perspective and my understanding. And I think we can do that in a way of just honoring each other as just people.
I love that. Yeah, and you're so right.
Tired of overpriced energy drinks full of junk? Same. That's why I use Babello, a self-carbonating hydration packet that gives you clean energy, electrolytes, and vitamins without the crash. Just add water, shake, and sip. It's way more affordable than typical energy drinks and way better for you. Use code ChrissyBernal15 at checkout to get 15% off at drinkbabello.com. Hydration just got an upgrade.
We see everybody's highlight reel, and so then it makes you feel lesser, and so then you're ashamed, and
Hmm.
or you're comparing. And I don't know if your feed is full of it, but mine is full of I made 7 figures overnight. I'll show you how. I'm like,
Listen,
no, you
if one
didn't.
more person comes to me and tell me they can 10x my business in 10 days, I'm going to take 10. Like, I don't know. I just, and the thing about it is for some, yes, I completely get it, but I'm looking for a different type of pace. I think I've lived that pace already. And shout out to those who are just entering into that pace and they're going forward, sort of guns blazing. I'll see you in 10 years and let me know how it's going. Right.
Yeah.
And it's okay because we all have to go through our own journey of learning and understanding. But I think that we've experienced so much as a community, right? And as a world over these last 6, 7 years, just pre and post pandemic is what I think about life right now. And I think we're in that space of wanting to grow back in closeness with each other and that in-person connection and doing it in a way that feels good. And I think we're also understanding that community means different things to different people. And the internet allows for you to have community in such an expansive way to where it may not just be the people in your home and your immediate surroundings, but you can go find those people who have like-minded interests. I think, you and I would have probably never crossed paths if
Right.
it wasn't for this little tool called, LinkedIn. And there we got to kind of see each other and understand what's going on. And being able to sit here with you and have so many commonalities is a great feeling because we're already having that shared experience, that shared understanding.
I love that. Yeah. And you're right. The internet has allowed us that opportunity. But I think, to your point about the in-person stuff, I think the more we see AI come into play, we are realizing, oh, we want that human connection.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
we thought it was bad whenever the customer service was just a robot. Like now we really want that human connection. And, pair that with the trust recession. Now
Mhm.
we want to know, are we actually talking to a human being or are we listening to AI that's lying to me?
Every time, and even to the point of what I'm seeing on my screen. Is this a real person or is this a really great AI? To our point of, you got to get kind of outside and interacting with people. And maybe this is the push that we need
Yeah.
to, create that in-person community again. Because if the AI and the bots can do some of those more menial tasks that we don't need to spend time doing, so us as humans could get back to where we're great with each other and that connection, I'm all for it. But I have that feeling that, AI is great in terms of the way it can help us learn and grow and take care of those things, but it'll never be able to replace this type of conversation that you and I can have because before it can figure that out, it has to learn from you and I what this
Yeah.
looks like.
Well, and there's an energy exchange
Hmm.
that you can't get from AI. Like,
Right.
I mean, literally, scientifically speaking, the frequency is not the same.
Hmm.
So it's just science. It's not the same.
It's not. It's not. And I think, if you spend any time online, you get to immediately start being a better, more discernment, right? Oh, okay, I get what this is, how this is targeted, what this is trying to pull from me. And for me, I'm just in a space of wanting to connect with people who are honest about their stuff, good, bad, or indifferent, right? What I've done well, here's where I've had some of the hiccups, and here's where I'm still doing some of the work. And if you're in a space to be able to accept that, great. And even better, if you can learn and grow with me as a person, come on along for the ride because it's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for where we're moving as women, right? And I think understanding that we need to repair some of those bonds of trust with each other and
Ooh,
doing that in a way that is authentic and knowing that you don't need to lean into the nice girl fakeness, but you can be kind to each other, and kindness goes a long way.
I love that. Yes. And, it makes me think I have a group of women in the PR space that we meet every month. And we've met, I don't know, 5, 6 years now. It's been a long time. And we are always very open. Like, here's what I'm dealing with. Here's what I'm charging. Here's what clients are saying. Here's what I'm seeing in the market. And it's like no conversation is off the table.
Yeah.
Let's just have it all. And that way we can all help each other. And it has been such a wonderful sense of like refueling And, we all have grown. It's not like any of us took from anyone else's potential.
It's a
We
shared
all,
understanding, right?
exactly.
And I think those spaces are so needed and so important when I think about the work I do and the women that I work with, being able just to have that sense of community, right? Of I can come and show up my most authentic, imperfect self, right? And these people are going to be understanding and wanting to truly hear and help where they can, even if that is just saying, wow, that is a lot. I've never experienced any of that. I'm wishing you the best, right? I don't have anything to give, but I'm also not going to take. And I think that really can go a long way in the relationships that we have with each other personally and in business, but also as we're thinking about women who are looking up to us and watching how do we interact with each other? Are you, to your point earlier of, integrity being one of your top values? Are you demonstrating integrity, not just when you're on camera, but the way you operate within the world? Tell everyone, I lean into conflict and tough conversations. It would be crazy wild to see me on the internet crashing out, not managing my conflict correctly. I have to actively think about, what are the situations that I'm going to have to really manage myself in a way that I'm showing up my best self today and in 2 years. And I think right now, people aren't thinking long term enough.
No, they're definitely not, especially on the keyboard courage stuff. But so if there's a woman out there who's like, gosh, I really need to have this conversation, and they're dreading it, what is the thing that you suggest they start? Like, how can they shift it so they stop looking at it like, oh, this is going to be hard?
Yeah. I think number one, first, just understand it's going to be hard the first few times. However, you can get through it, right? So number one, I always say if you need a resource or a tool, I have what I call my Spark Conversation Igniter. It's a free guide on my website. Download it,
Nice.
have it, use it as a companion. But I always say, think about what is the situation and what is it that you want, right? What is it that you truly, truly want? Remiss of the other person or the other thing, right? What would bring you satisfaction? And then get really clear of what isn't going to work anymore. As important as it is to know what you want, what is it that you're going to stop doing as well? Right? If you can figure that out first and then get honest with yourself, stop lying to yourself about what you may be doing or what you intend to do in your mind, how you're doing it. You have to get really honest with yourself about, am I showing up for myself first the way I expect for people to show up for me? And if you're not willing to do it for yourself first, and if that's either being honest in your conversation, having more integrity about what you may be doing, start there. And a little bit at first, I would say start with the facts and then understand what is the impact that thing is having with you. And I always tell people it could be sometimes very, very simple. We all have, I think at this point, sometimes multi-generational families in one home, and that can lean into a lot of conflict and just, different things that may have happened. So being honest about who's handling what and why, and if you do or you don't do it, how does that impact the other people around you? I think oftentimes we disregard how our action or inaction, what that ripple effect may do to other people. And like, oh, well, it's no big deal. Or we just assume, well, I assume that. Stop assuming. That's the first thing you can do. Stop assuming and ask. Give that other person an opportunity to be a part of the conversation before you get so far into the story or the narrative that you told yourself that reinforces the narrative that you want to believe, right? Bring them in, let them be a part of the conversation. That's where I would say start first.
I love that. Well, and you're so right, because a lot of times we make a situation to be out so much worse than it is, and so much worse that it's going to end up being. And then in some levels, we actually can cause that to happen by
Oh,
way of,
yeah.
the universal laws.
Yeah. Those
And
self-fulfilling prophecies are really real, right?
exactly. And so, one of the things I've started doing with myself is if there's a situation and I catch myself keeping worrying about it, I'll go, nope, let's stop. Let's visualize and write down what the ideal winning scenario would be from this. And let's focus on that instead. And I've just found that it makes me behave differently. It makes me be more conscientious of what I'm
Mm.
doing. And yeah, it works for me. So
Yeah, I'm always in the mindset too of, be careful what you take in first thing in the morning or
Mm,
whatever is the start of your day, right? Some people, first thing they do is start a doom scroll. And I'm
yeah.
just like, well, why? Right? How does that start your day in any sort of intentional way to give you the best first possible start? So for me, I usually get up, I do some sort of affirmations, meditation, prayer, whatever that may be. And then I get into my intentional movement because that's a key part of my day. I'm lucky enough to be able to live by a wonderful green space, so I can take my dog out when it's
Nice.
not too hot out here in Arizona. Take my dog out. She and I will do like at least a mile walk usually. And that provides me some clarity to be able to say, okay, what's to your point, right? What are those top 3 tasks that I want to get focused on the day? And what does my day need to look like for me to chunk that out? And then taking action, right? And I think being able to your point of reframing some of those negative thoughts away from everything that can go wrong and starting to lean in what can go right, right?
Mhm.
How can I focus my energy on what are the things where I can be successful, where I can get those little check marks of, yes, I've taken care of this. This feels good, rather than solely focused on all the things that you feel are out of your control. Sometimes we're so focused on the things that we can't control,
Yeah.
you're missing the things that, are just those small moments of greatness, but we don't lean into it enough.
So sometimes my husband will come in and he'll start telling me something political or whatever. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I cannot control what so and so is doing right now. I don't have energy or room for it. Don't want to hear it.
Yep. And it has to be like that sometimes because it's just like, you think about a few years ago, everything in the news was just so gripping,
Everything.
right?
Even not
And
everything, always negative. The world's
it's
falling apart
always
all the
something, right?
time.
And I was telling one of my friends, I said, I love getting text messages from you, but I don't need the doomsday reports. I don't need them. I'm trying to actively move away from that. So if we could have conversations separate from that, that would be great, right? And even with that, that's a small boundary. People don't know not to send you the shock news if you don't tell them, don't send me the shock news, because they may think they're doing a great thing just keeping you updated. But geez, what is the mental mindset that I may have been in? I may have been in a really great mood and now you've brought me really down, right?
Yes.
Being a
Yes.
bit more
That is an
mindful.
excellent point. And that's an excellent point for you to be aware of yourself. Like if for the person sending you those doomsday texts, like they need to check themselves. Why are they feeling like they need to send it to you?
Right.
And yeah, I've just gotten
That's a
really
great thing, right? What about me makes you think I want to know about this immediately? What kind of vibe am I sending to you that says, "Hey, send this to Quincy"? No, I don't want that. Send me some cat videos, like I tell people.
yeah. And you said it was a boundary, and that's exactly right. Like I even had it with there was a client, and they said something. I said, you know what, I really don't like to focus my energy there. And I find it's better for our campaigns if we focus on this. And honestly, I was a little bit shocked that I said that, but it just came out. And I was like,
Hmm.
yes.
And then you know what? And it's one less time you have to say it, right? Because imagine all of the if you didn't say it, all of the brain power you would spend revisiting that conversation, wishing you would have said
Yeah.
it, or now trying to finesse it in a way because maybe you didn't have the conversation. How now? Maybe if it's like copy or a campaign, you're going in tweaking, doing extra work for someone that this is the job that you paid for them to do.
Love
We
that.
gotta we
Love
gotta
that.
own it a little bit.
So, is there anything that we haven't covered that you were like, I really want to make sure that I say this today?
Yeah, I think for me, number one, I'm just very thankful to have the space and have
Yeah.
the time with you and your listeners. My advice for the women and the listeners of the audience is to be ambitious, be powerful, be goal oriented, but make sure that those goals, those desires, that ambition is really curated from a place of your own knowing and not the labels or the expectations that other people may have placed upon you. a lot of us don't even realize that we're kind of going through it as this widget, making and doing the thing. And those aren't the expectations that we have for ourselves. And it's okay to stop, reassess, and take a different course. You have that innate right to change your mind, right? We're women, we can do that. But also just to say, you know what, it worked that way for X amount of years. Maybe it worked well, maybe it didn't, but I'm intentionally doing it a different way going forward. Be bold about it. Bring your boldest self to your biggest challenges. That's what I encourage women to do. Be courageful. Take the courageous step. Don't hide behind fake confidence. It won't get you.
I love that. Oh, that's a great place to wrap it up. And where can people connect with you?
Absolutely. So I'm all over social media at Quincy, Quincie, Experience Coaching. Go to my website, experience-coaching.com. There you can download my free conversation igniter. So if you're having those tough conversations that you've been dodging, use it as a companion. Send me a message. You can find me. I'm everywhere. So I am not one of those people to where I don't respond back. I engage, and I am looking forward to talking to each and every person that wants to reach out.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today. This was wonderful and one of those conversations that fuels me up. And so
Me too.
I love when that happens and the energy exchange and just encouraging one another as well. So I love that.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for being a guest.
It's my pleasure, and I'm happy to come back anytime.